These are the 7 NHL players that I found that each meet the criteria of the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, sloth. Starting off with the first of the 7 deadly sins, which is pride. Pride is defined as an excessive belief in one's own importance or abilities, often leading to arrogance or overconfidence. The NHLer who best matches this is Patrick Roy. Roy's confidence bordered on arrogance, but his success backed it up. He's known as one of the best goaltenders of all time. However, he had a fair bit of controversy surrounding his name. A defining example came during the 1996 playoffs, when Chicago's Jeremy Roenick joked that Roy had been caught getting his jock out of the rafters after a flashy move.
Stop me. I just want to know where he was in Game 3. Probably getting his jock out of the stands out of the Raptors United Center, man.
Roy, ever self-assured, responded instantly with a legendary one-liner.
I can't really hear what Jeremy says because I got my 2 Stanley Cup rings plug in my ear.
Referencing the championships he'd already won, which perfectly encapsulated Roy's supreme self-belief and showmanship. Fans loved it. Here was a goalie with the swagger to talk trash and the talent to back it up. But Roy's pride also precipitated one of the most dramatic exits in hockey history. The breaking point came on December 2nd, 1995, in a game between Roy's Montreal Canadiens and the Detroit Red Wings. On that fateful night, coach Mario Tremblay left Roy in net far too long as goal after goal poured in. Roy surrendered 9 goals on home ice, observing mock cheers from the unforgiving Montreal crowd. Humiliated on national TV, the proud goalie finally had enough. When he was finally pulled from the game, Roy went past his coach and declared to the team president, Ronald Corey, that it was his last game for Montreal. True to his word, within days he was traded away, ending his Canadiens career in a stunning fashion. This exit, essentially trading himself, was born of wounded pride. Roy could not tolerate the indignity he felt that night, and his uncomposing self-respect blew up a storied 11-year tenure with the Habs. The move shocked the hockey world, but Roy vindicated himself by winning 2 more Stanley Cups with Colorado soon after. It was a double-edged sword. It fueled his Hall of Fame greatness, but also triggered an abrupt, fiery divorce from the team that made him a star. Greed. Greed is an intense selfish desire for wealth, power, or possessions, often at the expense of others. The player that best fits that is Alexei Yashin. He was a talented center for the Ottawa Senators in the 1990s. However, Alexei developed an appetite for a richer contract at the peak of his stardom. In 1999, with 1 year remaining on his deal, Alexei stunned the team by refusing to report to the season, effectively a holdout aimed at forcing renegotiation. He was due to earn $3.6 million that final year, but felt that was far below the market value for a player of his caliber. Alexei's agent demanded an exuberant extension of $11 million and $12 million in the following years, figures virtually unheard of then. When Ottawa refused to budge, Alexei sat out the entire 1999-2000 season in protest. The Senators, backed by the NHL, responded firmly. They suspended Alexei without pay for the next year, declaring he still owed the team 1 more season on his contract, and warned they wouldn't trade him as a reward for his holdout. The standoff was bitter and high profile. Even Wayne Gretzky weighed in, noting that it seems Alexei is not happy, and obviously the Senators aren't happy with him. Around the league, fellow GMs applauded Ottawa's hard line. However, Yashin remained unmoved. After a year away, spent skating in Switzerland to stay in shape, Yashin was legally compelled to return to Ottawa for 2000 to the 2001 season, as his last season didn't count, and he still owned the Senators a year. He came back with no apologies. In a press conference upon rejoining, defiant Yashin expressed no regrets and no apology to his fans for the holdout. "I'm not going to apologize. I will do my best and see what happens," emphasizing that he only returned because he had to and had no other choice if he wanted to play hockey. It was a remarkable display of stubborn resolve. Yashin never publicly apologized, and in the eyes of many fans, this year-long saga cemented his image by money above all else. Ultimately, he did get the payday he sought, but it came at a cautionary tale of its own. In summer 2001, Ottawa traded him to the New York Islanders, who promptly signed him to a blockbuster 10-year deal worth around $64 million. The deal made headlines as one of the richest ever at the time. For Yashin, it may have felt like triumph, greed rewarded, yet the contract proved disastrous for the team. Yashin never quite lived up to the immense salary, and was even bought out early, with the Islanders paying him millions for years afterward not to play. Lust. Lust is an intense desire for pleasure, attention, and gratification, often driven by impulse and lacking self-control. Jeremy Roenick embodied a kind of lust. During his playing days in the 90s and 2000s, Roenick was one of the hockey's great characters, a showman who never met a microphone he didn't like. He jawed with opponents, famously trading barbs with Patrick Roy, and delivered colorful quotes with the same flair he showed scoring goals. Fans and media found him entertaining, for his harsh confidence. However, Roenick's tongue eventually went too far in his post-playing career. The lack of self-control in his quest for attention led to a scandalous downfall. In December 2019, while working as a studio analyst for NBC Sports, Roenick appeared on the popular Spitting Chiclets podcast and let out inappropriate remarks. In a misguided attempt at humor, Roenick openly joked about the prospect of having a threesome with his wife and a female co-worker, Catherine Tappan, during a vacation trip. He repeatedly commented on Tappan's appearance and hypothetical scenario of going to bed together every night, the three of us, then quipped, "It really came to fruition, that would be good." Roenick didn't stop there. Later in the same interview, he veered into commentary about another co-worker, ex-player Patrick Sharp, calling Sharp so beautiful, "I wouldn't say no right away if Sharp propositioned him." The attempt at edgy banter fell utterly flat. It came off as lewd and unprofessional gossip about colleagues who weren't present. The backlash was swift and severe. NBC Sports suspended Roenick indefinitely without pay for inappropriate comments about co-workers, and within 2 months, he was fired by the network. For a man who seamlessly transitioned from NHL star to TV personality, it was a stunning public fall from grace. Roenick later acknowledged he crossed the line, but also grew bitter, even filing an ill-fated wrongful termination lawsuit claiming discrimination that was eventually dismissed. Envy. Envy is a resentful longing for what someone else has, such as their success, status, or talents. No name looms larger in Montreal Canadiens history than Maurice "Rocket" Richard, a hero, an icon, and a symbol of French-Canadian pride. Richard's own ice exploits, 544 goals, 50 goals in 50 games, 8 Stanley Cups, made him a legend, but equally famous was his temper. The Rocket played with a permanent chip on his shoulder. In Richard's passionate era, many French-Canadian players felt like they had to fight for respect in an NHL dominated by Anglophone owners and officials. Richard channeled the cultural tension and his own hunger to be the best into an intense, sometimes uncontrollable fury. Envy in Richard's case was less about jealous material desire than a raw, resentful competitiveness. He hated anyone challenging his supremacy or disrespecting his people. His rivalry with Detroit's Gordie Howe, for example, was two titans pushing each other to new heights, each fighting for the throne as hockey's top player. Their battles were often literal, marked by flaring tempers and the odd flying elbow. Richard's most infamous incident, the Richard Riot of 1955, shows how envy and anger intervened in his career. During a game in Boston, Richard was struck in the head by an opponent's stick, cutting him badly. Bleeding and enraged, Richard snapped. He attacked the player with his stick and even punched the linesman who tried to intervene. The NHL president, Clarence Campbell, suspended Richard for the remainder of the season and the playoffs. Montreal fans collectively exploded. A massive riot erupted when Campbell dared to attend the next game. Angry crowds smashed the windows, overturned cars, and fought in the streets, causing over $100,000 in damage. The Richard riot was much a cultural protest as a sports incident, a response to the perceived slight against their idol, and by extension, their community. Richard, deeply remorseful, went on radio to calm down the people, but the episode cemented Rocket Richard's image, proud, emotional, and even vengeful when provoked. The rivalry with Gordie Howe amplified envy. As the NHL's top goalscorer, Richard was threatened by his rise, bigger, more complete, and just as competitive. The two clashed physically and in the record books, with Gordie Howe's Red Wings often getting the better of Richard's Canadiens in key matchups. Richard hated losing to him and burned with competitive jealousy, using it as fuel to elevate his game. That fierce drive, rooted in envy, helped define his legacy and made him a symbol of pride for French-Canadian fans. Gluttony. Gluttony is the point of overconsumption of anything to the point of waste, often associated with the lack or restraint or excess beyond necessity. Gluttony in hockey doesn't refer to literal gluttonous eating as much as to excess and indulgence. A few players have been subject to a narrative of indulgence more than Phil Kessel. Kessel is an elite scorer and a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, but for years his name was comically rolled around with hot dogs and questions about his fitness. Early in his career, especially during his tenure with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2009 to 2015, the media crafted the narrative that Kessel was out of shape, lazy in training, and was overeating junk food. A Toronto Sun columnist even infamously alleged that Phil visited the downtown hot dog stand every afternoon, almost every day at 2:30 p.m., like clockwork, to chow down on a fatty snack. This unverified story, which teammates and fans later debunked as nonsense, painted Kessel as a sort of glutton, more interested in eating than putting in the work. It was an image that stuck. Despite scoring 30+ goals in multiple seasons and rarely missing a game, he couldn't shake the image and reputation of being hockey's resident junk food lover. The Toronto media couldn't stop speaking about his diet and body language. To them, Phil was talented but unmotivated. Kessel, a private and easygoing person, mostly ignored the chatter. However, eventually, Kessel's gluttony narrative took on a life of its own, and he got the last laugh. In 2015, Kessel was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins, where he promptly helped the Pens win back-to-back Stanley Cups in 2016 and 2017. After the second cup, Kessel played out an epic troll during his day with the Stanley Cup. He literally filled the trophy bowl with hot dogs and posed for photos eating them on a golf course. The images went viral. Here was Phil, the two-time champion, embracing the hot dog meme that had followed him. It was perfect for the critics. Toronto fans roared with laughter and appreciation. Even the columnist who started it, Steve Simmons, earned some mockery as Kessel turned the joke on him. Behind the jokes, Bill Kessel's gluttony was more myth than reality. When media mocked his diet and fitness, he quietly became the NHL's Iron Man, playing over 989 consecutive games and winning 3 Stanley Cups. Despite the hot dog stories and laid-back demeanor, Kessel was incredibly durable, smart on the ice, and constantly productive. In the end, Kessel embraced the meme and turned it back on the media. Wrath is intense, uncontrolled anger or rage, often leading to vengeance, violence, or impulsive actions that cause harm. When it comes to raw fury on the ice, a wrathful willingness to break the code of conduct, Domi stands out among the NHL enforcers. Domi was a 5'10" fireplug who carved out a 16-year career as one of NHL's most notorious tough guys. He accumulated a staggering 3,753 penalty minutes, third highest in NHL history, and dropped the gloves in 333 recorded fights. Protecting teammates and settling scores was his job description, and few did it as enthusiastically. But Domi's brand of enforcement often crossed the line from accepted hockey scrapping into outright vigilante violence. Time and time again, his wrath got the better of him, leading to ugly incidents that the sport's traditional code couldn't justify. He delivered hits and punches that were payback or provocation, not within the bounds of fair play. As a result, he earned multiple suspensions and a reputation as a man fueled by vengeful anger on ice. 2 incidents in particular define Domi's legacy of wrath. The first came in October 1995, when Domi, then with the Toronto Maple Leafs, was jousting with Ulf Samuelsson of the New York Rangers, a player widely disliked for his own dirty play. Samuelsson allegedly taunted Domi, reportedly calling him a dummy, mocking his dyslexia during a scrum. Domi responded with a swift and shocking act. He threw a sucker punch that knocked Samuelsson out cold, flat on the ice. Just one punch that knocked him out and left Madison Square Garden stunned in silence. And then an uproar as Rangers fans realized what happened. The NHL suspended him for 8 games for the assault, a significant ban in that era. Domi, unrepentant at the time, noted in his autobiography years later that while the suspension was warranted, he didn't regret that he had punched at all, much given the provocation. In his eyes, Samuelsson had it coming. The second defining incident was even more notorious. The 2001 playoffs cheap shot on Scott Niedermayer. In the 2001 Eastern Conference semifinals, Domi's Leafs were facing New Jersey, and the tensions were high. Niedermayer, an all-star defenseman known for his finesse more than physical play, had clipped Domi in the face with a stick earlier in the series. Accidentally or not, no one really knows. Domi stewed on that. In Game 4, away from the puck, he snapped and delivered a flying elbow to Niedermayer's head as the Devils player was skating unsuspectingly. The blow knocked Niedermayer out cold on the ice and sparked a melee. It was a shocking act of retribution, and even Domi later called it the dumbest thing he ever did in his career. Purely payback, done in anger. The NHL threw the book at him. He was suspended for the remainder of the playoffs and the first 8 games of the next season, essentially a 16-game ban for a single elbow. Even in a league accustomed to violence, Domi's attack was beyond that, an uncontrolled burst of wrath that could have seriously injured the star player. Domi later expressed real remorse for this one, recognizing it served no purpose except vengeance. Sloth is a habitual reluctance to exert effort to use one's potential, often marked by laziness, apathy, or lack of motivation, and Alexandre Daigle fits the role. His name is now synonymous of short-handed and unfulfilled potential. In 1993, Daigle was the #1 overall pick, a junior talent out of Quebec, billed as the next Mario Lemieux. The Ottawa Senators were so eager to get him that there were rumors of failing for Daigle's tank strategies. When Ottawa did land the top pick, they inked the 18-year-old Daigle for an astronomical contract, $12.25 million over 5 years, which was so huge that it literally caused the NHL to institute a rookie salary cap afterward. The pressure and hype to this teenager was immense. He was marketed as the franchise saver and the next great player, and Daigle played right along. The draft podium, smiling in the Senator jersey, he infamously quipped, "I'm glad I got drafted first, because no one remembers #2. That quote, which was meant jokingly, later went to backfire on Daigle, because the second overall pick was Chris Pronger. In truth, young Daigle was ill-prepared for what awaited. By his later admission, he had no clue what he was getting into, as an 18-year-old thrusted into a hopeless team in a media spotlight. He had been a hockey phenom for years, but secretly the drive was a warning. In a recent documentary, The Chosen One, Daigle revealed that even before he turned pro, he had largely fallen out of love with the game. After his final junior season, burnout hit early. He was scoring 50 goals in junior, but felt empty, even experiencing spontaneous crying after games from the mental strain. Mental health support wasn't that available in those days. Instead of rest, he was told to suck it up and get ready for the NHL. So when Daigle arrived in the Ottawa Senators with the immense talent but a flickering internal fire, things were destined to crash. And when things went poorly on the ice, as they did, Ottawa was terrible, and Daigle's early production was modest, questions immediately arose about his heart and desire. Coaches and fans wondered if he cared enough, if he worked hard enough. By his third season, it was clear he was not progressing. His scoring remained underwhelming, and his defensive play and work ethic were suspect. Rumors swirled around that he was more interested in enjoying the celebrity lifestyle than putting in the work to improve. The Sloth label, lack of effort, began to stick. Daigle's own actions did little to dispel that notion. He became known for the off-ice glitz. He also chose to wear number 91, in the same Joe helmet style as Lemieux. Little things like that in hockey culture signaled a player perhaps focused more on the image over substance. As Ottawa's struggles continued, Daigle seemingly lost all motivation. He admitted he had trouble resetting goals each year, and simply fitting into the professional grind was troubling. By the 97 to 98 season, just 4 years into his career, his passion was so depleted that the Senators, who once swore they'd never trade him, finally cut the bait. He was labeled as a draft bust and dealt away at age 22. When Daigle arrived in Philadelphia via that trade, he had a moment of epiphany. Surrounded by true professionals on the Flyers, he saw Captain Eric Lindros's relentless drive, something Daigle realized he had lost somewhere along the way. "If you could trade for that drive, 100% I would do it," he remarked of Lindros's passion. It was an honest admission that the issue was internal, but even a new environment couldn't spark Daigle for long. After short stints with Philly, Tampa, and the Rangers, Daigle shocked the hockey world by quitting the NHL at age 25, retiring in 1999, saying he wanted to try something else. This seemed to confirm every suspicion. Daigle just didn't love hockey enough to sacrifice for it. Only in 2002 did he stage a modest comeback, eventually finding a bit of redemption as a role player with the Minnesota Wild, under coach Jacques Lemaire, who taught him how to be a two-way contributor. Daigle put up respectable numbers in Minnesota, but by then, the former prodigy was just another journeyman. He officially was done with his NHL career in 2006, with 327 points in 616 games. A very good career by normal standards, but disastrous output compared to the sky-high expectations of a number 1 pick. In recent years, Daigle has looked back on his career with honesty, admitting, while that the pressure was immense, his internal fire faded early. He didn't lack physical ability or become lazy in a literal sense. His sin was sloth of the spirit, without the drive or passion to match his talent. He couldn't rise to NHL greatness.